Warning. The following contains images of graphic violence and not suitable for all audiences. Who is Ghostface? The first movie made in 1996. Ghostface. Created by Kevin Williamson. Danny Rolling aka Ghostface. He was born in 1954 in Shreveport, Louisiana, to a 19-year-old mother named Claudia and a police officer named James, a decorated Korean War veteran who may have suffered some combination of post-traumatic stress disorder and inherent mental illness. Temperamental, controlling and violent, James fought with Claudia and heaped verbal abuse on Danny and his younger brother, Kevin, resorting to physical attacks on the boys as they got older. Rolling turned to art and music for solace. His Christmas gift of a guitar at age 15 proved to be one of his happiest memories from adolescence. He also recalled these early years as a time when he developed multiple personalities as a defense from the nightmarish reality around him, with attempts at suicide failing to bring an escape. In August 1990, Rolling murdered 5 students, 1 student from Santa Fe College and 4 from the University of Florida, during a burglary and robbery spree in Gainesville, Florida. He mutilated his victims' bodies, decapitating one. He then posed them, sometimes using mirrors. In the early morning hours of Friday, August 24, Rolling broke into the apartment shared by 2 university freshmen, 18-year-old Sonia Larson and 17-year-old Christina Powell. Finding Powell asleep on the downstairs couch, he stood over her briefly but did not wake her up, choosing instead to go to the upstairs bedroom where Larson was also asleep. Rolling murdered Larson, first taping her mouth shut to stifle her screams, and then stabbing her to death with a K-bar knife. She died trying to fend him off. 4. Rolling then went back downstairs, taped Powell's mouth shut, bound her wrists together behind her back and threatened her with the knife as he cut her clothes off. He then raped her and forced her face down onto the floor, where he killed her by stabbing her 5 times in the back. After killing Powell, Rolling went back upstairs and raped Larson's corpse. 5. He posed the bodies in sexually provocative positions and took a shower before leaving the apartment. 4. A day later, on Saturday, August 25, Rolling broke into the apartment of 18-year-old chemistry honors student Krista Hoyt at nearby Santa Fe College. 6. Prying open a sliding glass door with a screwdriver. Finding she was not home, he waited in the living room for her to return. At 11 a.m., Hoyt entered the apartment and was surprised by Rolling, who placed her in a chokehold. After she had been subdued, he used duct tape to gag her mouth and bind her wrists together behind her back and led her into the bedroom, where he cut the clothes from her body and raped her. As in the Powell murder, he forced her to lie face down onto the bed and stabbed her in the back, rupturing her aorta. He then flipped her body over and sliced her abdomen open from her pubic bone to her breastbone. After arriving back at his campsite, Rolling could not find his wallet. Thinking he may have lost it at the murder scene, he returned there, at which time he decapitated Hoyt, posed her body in a sitting position at the edge of her bed and placed her head on a shelf facing the corpse. He later claimed his intent was to add to the shock of whoever discovered her. 4. By this point, the murders had attracted widespread media attention. Many students had begun taking extra precautions, such as changing their daily routines and sleeping together in groups. Because the spree was happening so early in the fall semester, some students withdrew their enrollment or transferred to other schools. Tracy Poles, who was 23 years old, was living with her roommate Manny Tabawada, also 23. On Monday, August 27, Rolling broke into their apartment by prying open their sliding glass door with the same tools he had used previously. Rolling found Tabawada asleep in one of the bedrooms and killed him after a struggle. 4. Hearing the commotion, Poles went down the hall to Tabawada's bedroom and saw Rolling. She attempted to barricade herself in her bedroom, but Rolling broke through the door. Rolling taped her mouth and wrists, cut off her clothing, and raped her before turning her over and stabbing her 3 times in the back. Rolling posed Pole's body but left Tabawada's in the same position in which he had died. 4. With the exception of Tabawada, all of the victims were petite white brunettes with brown eyes, like Rolling's mother. Although law enforcement initially had very few leads, police did identify 2 suspects. One suspect was Edward Lewis Humphrey, a University of Florida student who had a history of mental illness and bore numerous scars on his face from a car accident. Humphrey was arrested after a physical altercation with his grandmother and held in custody for 5 months until a grand jury refused to indict him on the murder charges citing insufficient evidence. 7. Humphrey's photo was shown repeatedly by media outlets. Authorities publicly cleared him of all charges after Rolling's arrest. The other suspect was also later cleared. Louisiana police alerted Florida authorities to an unsolved triple murder in Shreveport on November 4, 1989. Detectives noted that there were similarities between the Gainesville murders and those of 55-year-old Tom Grissom, his 24-year-old daughter Julie, and his 8-year-old grandson Sean. The family had been attacked in their home as they were preparing for dinner. Afterwards, Julie Grissom's body had been mutilated, cleaned, and posed. Don Maines, an investigator on the case with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, traveled to Shreveport in November 1990 because of similarities between the murders committed in Gainesville and murders committed in Shreveport. 8. They included posing of the victims, tape residue on victim's body, and vinegar used to clean the body. Maines said they tested the body fluids from the perpetrator in Shreveport and found that this person also had type B blood. He called the match to the evidence in Gainesville a revelation in the case. Citation needed.
In a space of 3 days, one after another, students in apartments being killed, totally vulnerable.
Now that the death toll has reached 5, students are talking of returning home.
I'm terrified. I couldn't sleep last night. It's really scary.
On the 9th of March in 1994, Kevin Williamson decided that he was going to write a new horror movie titled Scary Movie. With there already being very successful horror movies out at that time, Williamson was stumped for ideas on what kind of horror movie he should make. Then on that very day in 1994, an episode of Turning Point featured a serial killer located in Gainesville, Florida, who had been murdering college students. During his observation from the murders in Gainesville, Williamson noticed that a window was left open. He then decided to go and check all the windows around the house he was in to make sure they were all shut, because the case had unnerved him that much. Then it hit Williamson. Intruders inside a home is one of the most frightening concepts anyone could face in their everyday life. This would make a perfect horror film, and so the concept of Scream was made. Scream went on to become a huge success in 1996, and it was very well celebrated for making callbacks to other horror films. And while Scream does provide plenty of scares, its story of Sydney being stalked by Ghostface was actually inspired by the real serial killer known as the Gaines Ripper, or also known as Danny Rolling.
How did Danny Rolling get caught? Hit that subscribe button and like button and make sure put a comment. Investigators didn't have to do much to find Rolling, as he was sitting in a jail in Ocala, Florida, where he'd been since robbing a grocery store months earlier, just a week and a half after the last murders. Everyone now knew why the killings had stopped. It turned out a bank had been robbed on the same day as another murder, too. With this connection, investigators looked over evidence, including tape and tools, from the robbery, and discovered that they matched what had been used in the killings. Not only that, but Rolling had type B blood, and in another sloppy confessional move had talked about his crimes in a diary they found. Rolling was arrested and put on trial. It was discovered that Rolling had suffered severe and constant abuse from his father, which may have helped explain a little bit where his madness came from, but it would not save him. Daniel Rolling was found guilty of his crimes and sentenced to death. On October 25, 2006, he was executed. In 1994, as the trial for Rolling was underway, ABC aired their show about it. Kevin Williamson was watching. While the screenplay he wrote was not about the Gainesville Ripper, it was about the fear he felt that night. Williamson then passed that fear down to all of us. We've been living with it ever since.
Yo.
Hello, Shorty. What are you doing?
Nothing. Sitting here watching the game, smoking some bud.
Are you all alone?
What's up? What's up?
What the? Who's that?
Yo, pick up the phone. What's up?
What's up?
Yo, Duque, pick up the phone. Yo.
What's up?
Ah!